So hard times really reveal the lack of character and discipline that are most people in businesses. They don't crush us. They reveal that you weren't ready anyway.
Every single individual has a story to tell, and they're great stories that need to be heard.
I want every listener to know they have the ability to change the world.
Welcome to the 1720 Podcast.
What's up, Mountain Movers? Welcome back to the 1720 Podcast. I think it's always cool when you're connected with somebody on social media. And Robert, I've followed you on LinkedIn for years now.
Wow.
Seeing those CEO forums and you know, the connection with Daniel Harris and now meeting you face to face for the first time. And we had some fun off-air conversations. It was insightful. There was faith. There was funny. All of that. So hopefully we could bring that on the recording now. But Robert Hunt, welcome to the show, my man.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, I always enjoy a good pre-record. We've set the tone for what's about to happen. Pretty funny so far.
Let's get it out of the way too.
Just out of the way so far.
Anything pent up, get it off your chest.
Yeah, right. So to the business of the podcast. We usually start out with really like the generic question, who's Robert? Tell us your elevator pitch. If you're stuck, how do you explain who you are? I don't know. However you want to put it.
If I was stuck in an elevator, how would I explain how I am?
Yeah, like that's how it started.
Riding up the elevator.
Well,
stuck is like, here we go.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, we kind of started a long time ago where we were trying to wrestle with how we introduce guests. And I said, let's just let the guests introduce themselves. Who are you?
Does anyone like doing an elevator speech? I mean, I know when you get sales training, you're supposed to do that. And I've just never, I've always resisted it because it just sounds so trite. But when I do introduce myself, I usually skip my work stuff because that's not as much fun as my life. And so I am married to the most amazing woman. I've married 25 years this year. And she is the most beautiful woman in any room I go to. And she's my best friend, and she makes life great. And the cool part is, a couple of years ago, she came to work for our business, so I get to hang out with her every day. We didn't get along well as an employee, so I had to ask her not to work for us per se, but she hangs out, and she is the heartbeat of our organization. She loves all our clients, and she's the concierge.
Yeah.
So at our monthly CEO group meetings, she shows up, gives everybody a hug. How's your wife? What's going on? She knows everyone's birthdays and anniversaries. She remembers everything, and she just brings joy into the room, and she's cool. So we have two adult children. Lauren, who's 32, just got married last September, and James, who's going to be 21 and already planning for his first drink. Originally, it was going to be at Disneyland at the Star Wars Cantina.
First in quotes.
Yeah. And I've always said, listen, if you want to have something to drink, you're curious, let's have it together anytime you want. That's not a big deal. I said, you have to force yourself to like alcohol. No, ooh, wow, vodka. That's so good. It doesn't go that way.
Love the burn.
So take the mystery out of it. But he's already thinking he's going to go to EVA, which is that virtual reality gaming place that we started in Flower Mound.
Oh, cool.
And they have his first, he wants to have a Tom Collins. No. What's the one you smoke them these days? You put a little wood thing on top.
Old fashioned.
Old fashioned.
I mean, I don't know.
I just like bourbon neat.
Yeah,
but a lot of people like old fashions, and so he's been seeing those and put the chips over it, burn it. So he's excited about that.
The old fashioned is taken off in the curated cocktail space with all the glass bird cage things and the presentment smoking them up and all this. So
big square ice cube.
Oh yeah,
which I thought you made those all, but one of the places I was at the other day, I actually got a bag out of the freezer. They're all pre-made ice cubes.
You're holding your cup like that's an old fashioned.
Oh, well, I was going to take a sip. I was going to take a sip and then I got distracted thinking, but okay, so set that down. We had a guest on that was talking about ice cubes, right? Or you and I
rapper?
No, like how they mass produce them and nobody actually made Ice Cube. Yeah, sorry. Today is a good day, but not that one. Okay. About how everybody buys them. There is one or two manufacturers of the crystal clear cubes in town, and they all
owns it.
Yeah, they buy from there, like $2 a pop or something for each little super clear cube.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that can't be right. Your margin is eating up pretty heavy on it.
Maybe it's not $2, but it was a very expensive ice cube.
Okay. Maybe the places I go, they don't have those.
They don't have the super clear. They just have
sort of foggy with a leaf in it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the home freezer.
I made these. Still tastes like iced tea.
Did it? I wonder on your elevator pitch.
Also a rapper joke.
Did it take you a while to get to that point and some effort and intentionality where your knee jerk isn't about work and career, but it's about family and faith?
I don't know. Maybe out of default, because I pushed away from a lot of that. In my career, I really wanted to have more impact in it, and
Yeah.
it just became a job for a long time. And since I didn't really dig the job, it was like, oh, what am I talking about, And so I'd always talk about my kids, or I used to say, you want to see a picture of my kids? And I'd take a pen out and draw some stick people. And here's my kids.
That's a solid move.
But look, there's not a lot that I could brag about that I've done well in my life, but I married way above my league.
Yeah.
And she's so cool and so wonderful. So why would I talk about anything else? It just pales by comparison. And so I get to be with her, enjoy life with her, and raising my kids has been a blessing and fun. And what I do for a living is an executive coach. But a lot of people have jobs, but nobody else is married to Kathy. So I think I start with that.
Yeah.
But for my day job, I'm an executive coach that runs CEO groups here in the DFW area. Been doing it for 10 years now. And I have great clients. A lot of people do peer groups, but my passion has been about building a community where you really could be real.
Yeah.
And my exposure to peer groups early on was a lot of people who wanted to be seen as important, coming together and brag about how rich and powerful they were, and then wanted to tell the people how to live their lives. And I was exposed to them in a couple of different settings. I thought, God, I would never want to be in this group.
Yeah.
So when I heard about it, I thought, well, how would I run it? I want to be where you can be radically transparent, where you can be real. And then I want to be radically open-minded, because if someone tells you something and all you do is lock up, well, you're not going to change.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got to have this mindset to at least listen to it long enough to figure out. We always say, listen long enough to know that they're right.
Yeah.
It's easy to listen long enough to position your argument to tell them they're stupid, but it's really hard to stay open-minded enough to listen long enough to go, how could they possibly think that? Oh. And then you actually have to listen all the way and not be formulating your response, because you're trying to figure out, why are they right? And if you change that perspective, you gain so much more knowledge.
Oh, yeah.
So we make it radical transparency, radical open-mindedness, and then thoughtful disagreement. And if you're not able to disagree and we're just going to, I don't want to cause conflict, you're not going to resolve anything.
Well, we were talking about core values off air. Like, does it get to a point where you have to fire somebody because they're not living up to that in those peer groups?
I've had to ask a few people to leave over the years.
Yeah.
Most of the time, they self-eliminate because they don't come to the meetings, because they don't feel like they're learning anything, because they already know everything.
Yeah, it burns out on them.
Yeah, I got better at choosing people,
Yeah.
which is why it's so hard to grow the business. If you just want someone who's got a pulse and a paycheck, then it's easier to fill groups. But I've already built this expectation with my group members now. If I bring someone in who doesn't want to play that way, they're going to hate them. And they're going to be mad at me for bringing in someone that's just making me money. And if you chase money, that's the way to go. But if I'm chasing impact, then I got to choose people who are wanting to change and get better. Otherwise, I'm not going to have any impact in their life.
Yeah. And like, I think of the correlation of like youth ministry or going to speak to a high school or something like that, where it's like, sometimes mentally I have that expectation that they should have more figured out than they actually do. So there's a little bit of grace there. Like, we're there to accelerate that learning curve, but it might be somebody's first time joining a peer group. And it's like, give them a little grace, see if they can kind of adapt. They might not bleed all of these core values day one, but maybe they can get there.
And they're my core values, so they don't have to live up to my core values, but they have to follow the rules of the group: radical transparency, radical open-mindedness, and thoughtful disagreement. And so I vet them very carefully before I let them be in the group. They don't visit. And it doesn't matter who's in the group. It matters that you came to learn. And so, well, who's in the group? It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Are you open-minded? You can learn from a janitor. Nothing against janitors. But there's this mindset that if you already think you're the smartest guy in the room, you're not going to learn anything.
Yeah. It's kind of like, and I'll tell a different, well, I'll pull a Stewie here and tell a story on top of a story, but I wasn't fully bought in on like being community in our church, because I was like, I don't need other people in on that. So I did it a few times and it was unsuccessful. It was a disaster until I finally got fully bought in on saying like, no, here's something that I'm really screwing up right now. What do you say about that? Or here's a place I need some help. Have y'all ever done this before? And like, help me, guide me through, that sort of stuff. It's only when you become fully bought in that that the value starts to manifest itself. Otherwise you're shaded and get guarded and
you're picking at everything. And these guys don't know anything. And you're just, most of the people, all the people I work with are successful business owners. They already know how to do stuff. And I have people in construction industry and healthcare and marketing, and it's all very diverse, but they all know how to do stuff. So they don't need me to tell them, or anyone else for that matter, tell them how to do stuff. What they need to do is figure out, why aren't you doing it? Because in most cases, they know what they're supposed to do, but they're just not getting it done. Yeah. It could be that they lack the energy. They're just so beat down. It's such a beat down. You know what it is to be in charge of your company. Every time you turn around, somebody's got an issue. You have to know something new every day, and the tech keeps changing and the rules keep changing. You have to be an expert at everything. Even if you don't do it, you got to know, is my CFO giving me good advice? Because the new tax laws are changing. He's saying something that doesn't apply anymore. And so you have to know everything.
Yes.
Even from IT and cybersecurity and sales and marketing and HR, my gosh, So there's an emotional beatdown that they carry. And then there's a bit of the imposter syndrome that I don't want to look like I don't have my act together, but who can? With all the things a CEO is expected to know, nobody can do that job. But if you focus on having to be the expert and the smartest person in the room, you're going to fail. But if you can learn to mentor and encourage your team and to help them be the best version of themselves, then you win by pouring into them. But it's when you think you got to know it all and do it all, man, it's a recipe for disaster.
Because we don't know any better when we're predominantly, we don't know any better when we're stepping in those positions because we don't have that mentorship. It's like, here's your next title, rock and roll.
Right.
And you're like,
right.
All right, I guess I have to have it all together.
And enough times of doing it successfully, you start to believe I can do anything. Okay, but not with excellence.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it builds this whole thing of, well, the emperor's got no clothes, but no one's going to say anything to him. Listen, you're doing this wrong. But who would say that to their boss? That's why you come to a group like that where you can be radically transparent and go, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then the group can go, well, what's going on? And you can talk and you can learn, and you still don't have to worry about looking like you're insecure in front of your own employees, which I would wish people would be more transparent with their employees because they already know you don't know what you know.
Yeah.
They just haven't said it to your face.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll credit Daniel with a lot of that because Daniel was in his Robert's peer group, Renaissance
Executive Forums.
Renaissance Executive Forum. And we talked about it. And that was then whiteboarding at his office. Like, we need to start a peer group, dude. And then
I didn't know that was okay.
That was around that time he was in there.
Okay.
I don't know how long he was in there, but during that time, it was like, we need to create something in construction. And that's what spun up Daniel, me, him, Preston, Colby, Matt.
You guys
David.
have your own group?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
And and it was before COVID. And when all of us leaders, it was all of our first time going through it. Like, how are you reacting today? How are you reacting today?
Yeah.
Different counties had different rules. Like, we were all in this vulnerable space, and all of our people are looking for us for the next step that day by day we had no idea.
Right.
And we're like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And they're like, that's good. That's good. Let's try this on. And every single day, that the power of that group, man.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, you're having impact beyond what you know.
Right on.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yep. So it was kind of like, all right, we need to spin one up.
Well, you've heard probably, but I'll give Melanie credit here, is that through us kind of chatting about that, some of our listeners have started getting together too. So there's like other little industry groups getting together of folks who are saying like, hey, I need that sort of a group to say, but I can say it in a safe space and nobody's judging me and we can talk through it. Just like that, kind of back to what you're doing, just like what you're doing at the CEO level.
We did it on our retreat last year. We do an annual retreat and we all get together for a couple of days. And one of our days was we talked about the power of peers. Excuse me. The power of peers have been around since you were a little kid. All the bad things I did was watching my peers or be encouraged by my peers. And yet some of the good things actually rubbed off on me from my peers too. But we've had peer influence since we were little kids.
Totally.
And yet for some reason or another, we get to a place where we don't allow peers into our lives. Like men's accountability groups is a joke because you say, I'm going to get there and be vulnerable with all these guys. And all you do is talk about work's really hard, or I don't know if I'm going to make the schedule with the Boy Scout troop this weekend. And instead you're struggling with your marriage and you don't want to talk about it. That's how most of the things I've seen where there's this concept of accountability is out there. It's this false sense of security. And you bragged, I'm in a men's accountability group. Like that somehow takes you off the checkbook of wondering whether you're going to be making bad decisions.
Yeah.
But most groups aren't really genuinely open about stuff.
No, I sat there firsthand in a church group, and I was not going to be the first to share because I thought my stuff was pretty twisted. And a few people shared, and I'm sitting there judging them. Like,
yeah.
Like,
and I got my own junk.
That's what you're here for? Like, come on, bro. Like, and so by the time it got to me, I softened the blow because I was like,
I'm going to look too weird.
I'm going to uppercut everyone with what I'm about to share. Like, so I'm going to subdue it.
Everybody, like somebody I'm going to say it again just to make sure I hear what you're saying. But what you're saying is like, you're going on the roof and the guy's like, yeah, like I need to buy new shoes and I don't know if I should buy blue ones or gray.
Or I'm working a lot of hours.
I'm watching porn.
Real
like
hard,
that. But even that to me, I was like, so?
And then it comes around and you're like, oh yeah, I just have a few things going on.
Yeah,
But
so
won't say like, here's what's really
not
going on.
anymore after seeing several other guys share some things that I considered far less. But over time, you figure out that's their mountain.
Yeah, sure.
Like,
Yeah.
it's all equal, level playing field. Like,
Well, in their world, right?
Totally.
For them. And that's why we wrote this book, Nobody Cares, was because we really felt that nobody can hold you accountable. You can only hold yourself accountable. But we don't create an environment where people want to be accountable. And so since I've watched so many bad examples of accountability that are under the guise of accountability, we needed to set the bar again. Accountability is only with you. Now, you can invite people into your story and you can tell them to inspire them and even to talk about it, which reinforces in your own mind. But if someone's going to hold you accountable to not do something and they ask you, how's it going? You could lie. And we often do.
Mm-hmm.
And I have an employee. I have one employee. And Angie's awesome. And she'll say, how many sales calls you make this week? I'm like, I'm going to make 10 this week. Or how many going to make? And then at the end of the week, we review. We're doing EOS too. So on our L10 meetings, how many sales calls? I didn't make any. Okay. What is she going to do? Fire me? You know? Well, I thought you were going to make sales calls. Well, I had this thing come up. And this. Okay. Well, how about this week? There's no ramifications. So it's a blank check, especially as a CEO. You can get away with whatever you want. It's your role. You're the guy in charge. I mean,
tangibly, but intangibly, she's like, well, I don't need to do my stuff.
That's
either.
Right. There's always a ripple effect to it.
Yeah.
But after a while of that, getting away with that long enough, you start to make your own rules. But if you're in a room with a bunch of other CEOs or in your guys' group, you must see this. If you're saying you're going to do something, you come back and you didn't do it, they're merciless. What's wrong? You said you're going to do it. Well, you're busy. Well, we're busy too. I mean, all the excuses that we could get away with our employees with, you can't get away with your peers.
Right.
Because peers understand the truth of that. And that's very different. So in the approaching this idea of nobody cares, we really started to think about how many things have been excuses that are comfortable for us that actually hurt us. We talked earlier before we started about getting away with stuff. And in our lives, we can get away with things and still run the business because who's going to challenge us? We're in charge. And so you say you're going to do something, you don't. There's no accountability to that up until it becomes ugly and then it's in your face. But that can cause a lot of damage along the way. So in trying to create a book that would tell this story, we shared our own personal stories in there, but we looked at the 4 things that always trip people up. You blame someone else, you make excuses about things, you say you can't, or you just wait and hope. And in one of the examples we put in the book is a story that Kathy and I's life, and we're very transparent about that. We had allowed ourselves to get into a lot of debt, and it was really ruining our marriage, and it was ruining my life. And for years, starting my own business, I didn't do it well, and I was not accountable to anybody. And so I just kind of didn't grow, didn't make profits, didn't track things, didn't organize stuff, just got away with it, whatever. I still existed, but I kept getting further and further into debt. And at some point we said in 2019, I don't like living in debt. I just feel this stress. Mm-hmm. We've got to make some changes. And so we decided that year, if the Lord doesn't decide to bless us, I love that phrase. If God doesn't decide to bless us, you live in America, you're already blessed. You have an amazing wife, you're blessed. You don't have some disease, both legs work, you're blessed. But I equated blessing that he gave me $100,000 to get out of debt. Mm. And he's like, dude, I've given you millions. What'd you do with it?
What'd you do with it?
Why would I give you more? And so that was our thing. If God doesn't bless us with a bunch of money, we're going to sell the house and start over. And so as the year went on, we were just like, Lord, please give us money. I don't want to sell this house. We had a beautiful home in Frisco. 3,500 square foot movie theater upstairs, all this great big furniture. It was beautiful. And I couldn't afford it, but I was living like I could.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So in September, I got vertigo for 16 days. I couldn't sit down. I couldn't lay down. I couldn't sit up. I couldn't sleep. Couldn't do anything. It was 16 days. I'm like, Kathy, you're screwed. Because if I have vertigo the rest of my life, we're going down the drain. I can't do it.
Hard to run a meeting with that. Yeah.
So finally it went away, praise God. And then I said, okay, that's it. We're selling the house. That's a sign. I mean, come on, it's not going to happen. And we're stupid. So we cried and discussed. But she was such an amazing, supportive wife that, hey, this has come between us and God. Anything that becomes more important than God is an idol. Mm. And that's one of God's things, says, don't have any idols before me. And all the thing we ever put our thought to was how we need money, how we get money, how we get money, how we keep up with our bills. All that stuff was an idol. Oh, yeah. We didn't call it that, but it really was. Mm-hmm. So we decided to sell the house. That was embarrassing. All our neighbors were like, why are you moving? We're like, well, I owe $90,000 in debt and I need to sell my house and start over. And they're like, oh, I thought you got a bigger house or something. They're expecting a more traditional answer.
Right.
But we had to own it. Part of
good for you.
Part of the process was not being a wuss about it.
Yeah.
And we just said, we screwed up. And so we're going to own it. And so we sold the house. Took a while, but by March of 2020, we sold it. And COVID had kicked in. So my son and I moved it all by ourselves. There wasn't much to move because we had to sell all our furniture to go in this little rental house we went to. And all these beautiful, dining room table could host 20 people. I couldn't take this in my rental. It was bigger than a house.
Yeah.
And so we sold it all for pennies on a dime.
That you probably weren't sitting at anyway.
Well, not enough. Yeah. Yeah. So we moved into this house and started over, and then COVID took over the world. And I remember the first morning I got up and I was sitting at the couch. It was early April, and I had this really weird feeling. And I was like, what's that feeling? Oh, that's peace. I had forgot what it felt like to have peace because I didn't have to go to work. I wasn't panicked. I wasn't in debt. I didn't have any stresses. And I used to wake up every morning and think, if I work my ass off, I'm still in debt and I'm still screwed. So what's the point? But when it's all fixed, I got back to the groundiness of, that was real peace. And that's the journey that we talk about in the book is, look, nobody cared that you were stupid with your finances. Nobody cares you have a lot of debt. Nobody cares the market isn't doing what you want to do. Nobody cares that you can't sell. Own it. Make the changes that are necessary to own the life you want. And I didn't want a life full of stress and strain. I wanted a life with peace where I could enjoy my marriage with my beautiful wife and have fun at work. You just had to make changes. And that's what the book is about. Sometimes you have to make changes to get what you really want.
Yeah. And get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is the general premise then, and I'm notoriously not a reader, so sorry I didn't read it before, but the premise is that these are the 4 reasons then that you don't go ahead and make a change.
Yeah.
Or what you kind of catalog through them. Blame, excuse, can't, and hope is how I wrote them down.
Yeah.
Those are barriers to what?
There's the barriers to change.
Yeah.
The first step in really truly being accountable is you accepting the fact that your actions have consequences. And most people would look at some problem and go, well, that's not my fault. That's this. And they blame. And it's very quick to get it off your back. But blaming someone doesn't actually fix anything. It just makes you feel better for a second.
Yeah, it's a little endorphin rush. It's not my fault, so that makes me feel like the problem is less my problem. It's you did it.
It's still there, but you're blaming someone.
Yeah.
And then if that doesn't work, you make an excuse. Well, the market's really bad. Well, these clients aren't making good decisions and they're not paying us on time. And, all these things that are excuses. But if you managed it right, you wouldn't be facing these problems. And so we make excuses. And if that doesn't work, then we say, well, I just can't. Hey, I can't sell my house and move into a rental. Well, what that really means is I don't want to.
Right.
And I could do that, but that was humiliating. And I liked my lifestyle. I liked the movie theater upstairs. I liked this big old house. I liked my neighborhood. And I didn't like having to tell people that I was stupid with my finances. So the can't was really I won't. And when we got over that, we always say when the pain of where you are is worse than the pain of where you have to go, you'll change.
Right.
And it was painful to be where we were just year after year trying to get by. And so the I can't was really I won't. So we got past that. And then the last one was wait and hope. Hey, maybe next year business will come around. Hey, maybe this. Hey, maybe that. Maybe I'll win the lottery. Maybe like 1,000 customers will call me up overnight and say, I want to be in your group. Here's $10,000. You're stupid. But how many people do that all the time? Making minimum payments on your credit card is waiting and hoping.
Yeah.
Having a really bad marriage that you don't talk about or do something to get better is waiting and hoping. And waiting and hoping usually gets worse.
Yeah.
You keeping around an employee that is truly a cancer, that is horrible, and you put up with it and say, well, maybe we can do this, and maybe we'll do this. You waiting and hoping just makes the cancer spread, and it rarely gets better.
Yeah.
So when you're done with all those things that you use to hold yourself back, and you finally say the magic words, which is nobody cares. Nobody cares if you're fat, broke, horrible business, to have bad employees, have a bad marriage. Nobody cares unless you do. And when you care enough to do something about it, then you'll change.
Oh, yeah. Hey, maybe you don't struggle with this. I do. When you replace that idol and you get your totem pole in check and your order of operations, your sun to your solar system, however you want to say it, what do you do when that idol wants to creep back into your life?
That's a good question.
I think you just have to look back at where you were and, by comparison, you have to say that where I am today now is giving me more satisfaction. Part of what we do in the book is there's these 2 wheels. They're called the satisfaction assessment. It's not really high tech, but you just write in these wheels, how satisfied are you? And if you look at it and you declare honestly to yourself, it's your own private assessment, where you are in your life. And if you say, I'm not living the life I want,
Yeah.
And if you are willing to make a change, then you can have more satisfaction. Why would you go back to something that you weren't satisfied with? When you can't have what you want, you get something else to try and satisfy it with. If I have a bad marriage, I'll be really successful at my work. And that gives me some joy because I can't have a good marriage, so I'll have a good business. And that's what people chase. But I wasn't satisfied with this. So if I'm going to ignore it, it won't ever get better. And so if you're honest with yourself and you look at that and say, I really don't like that. This whole book is about saying, I'm not satisfied with something and I'm willing to change it. And you have to come to that awareness that you aren't satisfied. That's why we really ask people to take the satisfaction assessment. Do not skip it. Because without it, there's nothing to compare. There's nothing to focus on.
Say more about that. Satisfaction assessment. What is that?
Satisfaction creates energy. And the more satisfied you are, the more energy you have in life. And we all need more energy. And so if you're not satisfied with something, you say, okay, the wheel has all these different categories, business and professional, business and personal. And if you declare, listen, I'm not satisfied with this or that. Like I wasn't satisfied with my finances. And I had a good marriage, but frankly, we fought about finances a lot. It just constantly came in. And then my health, man, I didn't go to see doctor appointments because it cost money. Mm-hmm. And I was stressed. I wasn't getting good sleep because I'd stay up and work really late at night. It was affecting my faith. It was affecting my health. It was affecting my friendships, all that stuff. Everything suffered under this effort to me to hold on to the house. And I wasn't willing to change one area of my life that would have this huge ripple effect in everything else. And so when I finally decided I'm so willing to change that, everything else got better. Even my perspective about things. I didn't make decisions in fear. You know, when you're tight for money, you go, I don't want to lose this client.
Totally.
Because I need cash, right? So you put up with really bad employees and really bad clients because you need the money to survive. When I didn't need money anymore, I'm like, why am I doing this? This is not how I want to live my life. This is not how I want to run my business. And I've seen a lot of people get to a place in their life where they've just settled. Mm-hmm. And they said, well, my marriage is never going to be great. So it's okay. So if I ask them, how would you rate your marriage? They go, it's a 7. But when you really ask them, well, when you were going to get married the night of your honeymoon, the night of your wedding, and you visioned your marriage for the rest of your life, is it that? Oh, no. Oh, no. Well, it's really a 2 in light of that. Well, that's where you need to go chase because you're not done.
Yeah.
It could still be really hard, but everything good is hard. Mm-hmm. Raising kids is hard. Running a business is hard.
Yeah.
Even being healthy, you got to work out. You got to choose to eat certain foods. You got to get sleep. You got to take vitamins, get doctor checks, get your prostate exam, and all that stuff. That's hard. You know, we don't like that stuff. But the reality is that anything good is worth fighting for, right? And so just because it's hard and you've faced some challenges, if that's what you want your life to be like, don't settle.
I'm very sensitive to the honeymoon period, and it's all facets of your life. The literal one, when you get married, but when you're on fire for a goal, you start a new job, family items, whatever the case may be, your faith, you come to faith. I got uppercut with that one specifically because you think you're there, right? Like on fire. What do you do when the fire burns out? It becomes work. You got to work towards your marriage. You got to work towards your goals. You got to work towards your discipline. You got to work towards your accountability. It takes work.
And you got to wrestle against the idea that like, oh, I did it. It should be easy now.
That's right.
Yeah.
That is like, I hear that.
False.
But I feel like I hear that from a lot of different people. It's just like, no, well, I did all the hard work to get here and now it should be easy. Like, nah, man, like you did all the hard work to get here so that you could have the hardest job.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that a lot of times if we look at something that's hard, we've got the wrong perspective as to why it's hard. It's hard because I'm an arrogant, prideful man. Marriage isn't that hard if you do it right, where you do it the way Christ modeled it, which is serving and being humble and caring for that beautiful bride that God gave you. But in my own arrogance and selfishness, it's very hard. So it's not that she needs to change or I need to work out things in my marriage. If I just wasn't such a douche, then I could probably show up at the game a lot better and we'd have less arguments.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, 90% of anything we ever fight about is how stupid I'm behaving at the moment.
Yeah. Look in the mirror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I can just be a better version of me all the time, my marriage is going to be better. I'll be a better father. Now, I can't guarantee the results. I can't guarantee that my wife's not going to have personal issues that I need to walk through valleys with her. That's why you're committed. And your kids, you're going to pour into them and do the best you can, but you can't make them turn out a certain way any more than you can with your business. I bet all the people who started brand new businesses 2 months before COVID hit the world have really had some hard challenges.
100%.
And lots of people went out of business. You can't control that. But if you ran your business so foolishly that when COVID hit, you went out because you were just trying to get by, some businesses grew through COVID. Tammy runs a manufacturing company in one of our groups, makes these little dental scanners that scans your tooth and makes a little crown. She pivoted. I hate that word. She adjusted and went out and found new businesses and brought in some whole nother company, have nothing to do with dentistry, to keep her team together. She's got these super smart PhD scientists that she doesn't want to lose, and these amazing manufacturing people. We don't want to lose these people and start over trying to rebuild when things get better. She brought in a whole nother business, tooled up, got supply chain, get certified, and kept them alive.
Yes.
So if she didn't have the cash to do that and the wisdom to do that and the people to do that, if you hadn't built the business that had those capabilities, then you fell apart.
Heck yeah.
So hard times really reveal the lack of character and discipline that are in most people and businesses. They don't crush us. They reveal that you weren't ready anyway. It was only a matter of time.
Mark that.
Pin it.
Yeah, mark that. Man, that's good. I'm literally marking it right now.
Yeah. I don't usually he's listening. So structure of these podcasts, we usually pull a wisdom nugget to the front. And I'm pretty sure that's the first time we're like, that one.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
the one.
For sure.
Usually he's making notes. He's like 20 minutes in, 32.
Yeah, I've been taking notes all along the while here, and I got
Grab
3 or 4
all those.
pieces. Yeah, I was just like, shh, go back to there.
That was great. Accountability. It shows up in your testimonials, your endorsements for the book. It's on your one pager. How big is that, both for self and for others and part of peers in your leadership journey? Just accountability in general.
Yeah, I think accountability is that magic thing that if you want the life you really want, then you have to know what that looks like. And, Simon Sinek said, start with your why. And there's a lot of wisdom in that. Those of us who are Christ followers, we look at the very top of the thing is say, to honor God in all you say and do with your entire life. That's the number one thing. And then second to that, I have my unique purpose in my own life that's personal to me. My unique purpose is to help people remove obstacles that keep them from being their best. That's my purpose in life. God's tooled me to do that. I happen to have a job that lets me do that, which is just the most amazing, cool thing. But I have a vision for my life, and everything fits underneath that.
Mm-hmm.
The accountability is the magic that makes it happen. So once you figure out what you want with your life, and you figure out where you're not satisfied, accountability lets you get there. And it forces the reality of it. Are you willing to change? But without a clear vision of what you want it to look like, and that usually comes from purpose, everything looks equally as valuable. Without a purpose, every decision is equally as much merit.
Yeah.
But when you know what that looks like, accountability is the magic tool that frees you up to be able to do all those things. And I think people are frustrated in life. They're not having the life they want.
Yeah.
They don't have the career they want. I'm salary whooped, and I just got to keep collecting that paycheck, and I'll work for that jerk boss because I got so much debt that I got to keep this job. And that's not life. And then they don't have the life with their marriage. They don't have the relationship with their kids. And there's this huge ripple effect. Another topic that we can get to in another podcast, if I'm ever invited back, is margin. Margin was a book written by Richard Swenson, and it talks about that in life, if you don't have room for things, you're living in overload. And overload is not a good way to run. But most people and most businesses run on overload.
Yeah.
Look at someone's calendar. They go from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting to lunch meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting to dinner meeting. And then they wonder why they don't make good decisions because they're overloaded. Your brain can only handle so much. And so when you choose to look at the life you want and say, what does it look like personally and professionally? And then you realize where you're not satisfied with it, you can actually put accountability into that process to have the life you want. To me, it was very freeing when Kathy and I decided we're going to be accountable to live the life we want. And I'm going to be accountable with my business to have the business I want. That means I'm going to be transparent and open. And I'm going to let other people look into my books. You want to know something about a person? Look at their calendar and look at where they spend their money.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And so we're going to be available for people to know. Our team's going to know. Angie knows how much money we make. Angie knows how we spend our money and our time because she's part of our team. And we talk about these things because I want true accountability.
I think there's like these two character traits go hand in hand to empower one another with accountability and vulnerability.
Exactly.
So when you put something in a book that's really revealing to you, and that idol wants to come back and creep back in, you can't. Like, you can't allow that. you're standing for something that's out and part of that story, man. You gotta walk in that, and it increases your accountability. If you're out speaking and speaking on principles, that increases your accountability.
Yeah.
Like you
The
have
more you
all
declare it.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And of course, the world's full of people who've declared to be a certain way, and you find them having affairs with their secretary and you know, blah, 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 and Enron and all these kind of things. But it is a more likely chance that you will be accountable to the life you really want if you declare it. But nobody can hold you accountable. But by declaring it and saying, like EOS does, where you put it in writing and you say where we're going and you have rocks and you make plans, all these pieces, they allow you to be accountable if you want to, but you have to want it. And it's only by comparison when you go, I'm not satisfied with my life, that I'm willing to make the true changes that will get me where I want to go. That's what accountability does.
I'm gonna use your favorite word, pivot us back to margin. Because man, that speaks like directly to me. I mean, my calendar is that calendar, and it has been for a long time. And I could kind of speak into why it ends up like that. I'm not like I'm not blaming someone, making an excuse, saying I can't, or hoping it fixes itself. Like I know it's a problem. Why, from your perspective on that issue, like why does that become a problem, and how do you then, when you're in the midst of it, like create margin? How do you undo it?
Yeah, in the mindset of margin, you're never going to embrace this unless you really believe that there's a limit. Most people run like there is no limit. And so if I was to say, how many great decisions can you make in a day? 10, 20, 1,000? So at some point you go, no, that's ridiculous. I can't make 1,000, even for sake of time, right? So we believe there's a limit. Well, if you take your load and then you compare it to the limit, the difference is the margin. But what we've done is we've got so used to living with so little margin that we're used to that feeling. What we don't recognize is the quality of the work we're doing when we're under that.
Yeah.
When you go from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, where's the time to download the knowledge you just got in that meeting? Where's the time to handle that phone call from your spouse who says, I got to talk to you right now? Or the employee who's waiting outside the door. Can I have 5 minutes of your time? I know you're busy. I just need 5 minutes. And what you do is, because you don't create margin, you give them a hard time. I'm really busy.
Mm-hmm.
What does that say to them?
Oh,
You're not important.
Right. And what if you really needed to hear what they're telling you,
Right.
and you missed something, right?
Well, your car's being broken into, so like you're too busy for me, buddy.
And so when you purposely schedule and time is the easiest one, because all four categories, time, finances, health, and emotions, is what the book talks about. I can measure my calendar and I can look at it and go, that's insane. You're working that many hours, and then we brag about it. Like, oh man, I was up till 2 a.m. rocking this out. You're an idiot. Isn't this your company? Why are you working till 2 a.m? Let someone else work for you till 2 a.m. Or better yet, have something organized where we don't have to work till 2 a.m.
That's right.
But it's like a badge of honor to talk about how overloaded and exhausted we are. I worked a 60-hour week last week. And when I was in construction, I have a lot of clients in the construction industry, and they sleep in their car. And they'll sleep, they'll go do something. They got to be there for a while. Then they'll sleep in the car for 3 hours, go back to doing it, watch another part, to go sleep in the car for where's your family life? Where's it? And they're giving up something for that. Yeah. Nothing's in a vacuum. So if you look at the counter and you're realizing, I don't like the way I live. Again, this comes back to nobody cares. If you're not satisfied with it, they fed into each other, by the way.
Yeah, I can see that.
Margin, I read that book and I struggled with it for years. How do I teach this to my clients? And I put it off for 2 years until I really was able to own it. And then that led me to write Nobody Cares with Salem. And that fed into it. But if you look at this and you say, I don't have room to breathe or think or live my life, I want to do something about it. Well, I can't. No, that's a lie. That's under the Nobody Cares lie. Mm-hmm. You can, you just don't want to. And so margin creates this expectation of living the life you want. And time, finances, health, and emotions. And if you just really look at those four categories and you create margin, room for interruption, room for the unplanned, and dare I say, room for God. Mm-hmm. Those of us who are Christ followers, if you believe you serve God and he doesn't have the right to interrupt your day, you don't serve God. Let's say he says, right now, go and call your buddy Joe, who's going through a tough time in his marriage. I don't have time. I got to go meeting. Stop and care for that employee who walks. I can't go. I got a meeting to meet. You're not putting any room for God to interrupt your day. You have booked him out. As a matter of fact, you started your first meeting at 6:30 at a breakfast. Where was your time with the Lord to get your head on right for the day? I don't have time for that. You've pushed God out, and then you've kept him from interrupting your day. Where does he actually fit into your life? I'll just visit him next Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Margin creates room for God to rule in your life, for you to have a relationship that's deep, where I can sit and have a cigar with a friend and not be in a hurry, or I can listen to music or laugh or do something for me and take a break that, by the way, brings me back more energy, which I do a better job. You make better decisions when you have room to think. When there's no room to think, you can't get anything done. And we're so used to just knocking stuff out. It's 10 o'clock at night. You're sitting in front of the computer still trying to make really good decisions after a whole day of emotional abuse. And then your wife's mad at you because you didn't come home on time and you missed the time with the kids and you feel bad and you're guilty and now you're still working. What kind of decisions are you making at that point?
Oh, yeah.
That's where accountability comes down because you're in charge. You can do whatever you want. You can make crappy decisions and people have to put up with it.
Mm-hmm.
And you say things in emails that you regret, but they're just, oh, he's in a bad mood. That's not the way I want to treat my employees.
Yeah, and you got to shake it off when you get home some days that day, so they don't. The people that are closest to you don't get the worst version of you. I was guilty of that more times than I can count, man. And I get some days I have to literally shake it off. Like, all right, like that was a rough day. Yeah. I'm coming in hot. I'm going to love my family. I don't succeed at it every day, but I put my effort in. You know,
make that part of your routine to come in and let them help you detox. Have a routine where your kids make you laugh. Mm-hmm. Where by comparison, the joy of holding my little daughter in my arms and reading a book made every other thing of that day seem useless.
Yeah.
So have some routine that helps you process that. It is awfully hard to shake the roles of a leader. The final decision makers carry a burden that other people will never understand.
Nope.
But when you come home, it's sometimes hard. I'm on a phone up until the moment I get in the garage.
Oh, yes.
I have a rule: don't come in the house on the phone because you don't need to bring your crap wrap up your call as your family sits there and watches you. So you get off the phone and now all of a sudden you're going to walk in being a good guy. But have a plan where you can say, I just need 5 minutes to hold you in my arms and sit there and hold your wife's hand and talk to her or your husband's hand, depending on who's listening. But have a plan. Let them be a part of your journey of being the better version of yourself.
Yeah.
Let them be a part of that. There's nothing wrong with that.
As a leader, you have that choice. Like you're talking about, we have a million choices.
Yeah.
That choice I told somebody yesterday, Quinn's walking up to the door. I got to go. That's my daughter's name. Respect it. They're not like, well, that's offensive.
Right.
They're not going to think that.
Right.
Like,
and if they do, who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think I want to work with that person.
That's right. Like, how dare you put your family over me? Like, who are you, pal?
There's a few
we know, just to wrap one more thing. We know we can do it differently because every time you go on vacation, what's it like? You get everything done. Because you're going to go on vacation. I'm going to take my laptop with me, assuming you do that. I'm going to go on vacation, take a week off and not check my emails, right? You get everything done in that time because you know you have to. And we say, well, I'm not going to worry about that. I'll do that later. We make choices all the time.
Yeah.
Why can't we live every day like that? Why can't you just say, look, I could work till 2 a.m, but I don't live my life like that. So if I'm not going to work at 2 and I'm not going to work at 10, I'm not going to work at 8, I could stop working at 5. Mm-hmm. I mean, really stop working. We could do that. Besides, we own the company. And yet we don't give ourselves the power to do that. We're releasing it to some other goofy task or responsibility. You have control over that.
Yeah.
I cut you off. I'm sorry.
I don't even know it. I have a whole group of folks I'll talk to on the phone. And as soon as I say, I was going to kind of come back to your point, I'm like, I'm in the driveway. That's just like, okay, bye.
Yeah.
Like mid-sentence, mid-conversation, like it's over. Yeah. It's harder when you're on like an actual like business call or whatever, but there's a group of us. I think I probably do it to you from time to time. I'm like, hey, I'm home. All right. Boom, it's over.
Right.
Yep. Because I have the same rule. Like I'm not walking in the house on the phone. Like that's kind of coming into a whole new set of like rules and what's been going on. And I'm not bringing that in here, but it's hard.
It was very unnatural for me. And it took a lot of work before it became more natural. I mean, my totem pole's been upside down most of my life.
Yeah.
And you figure out that it's an order of operations. If I put God first, I show up better as a family man. And if I'm a better father and husband, I actually show up better for my lead, the people I'm leading.
Right.
Like, and it's not like God is at the top. The other two don't matter. It's like, no. If I start my day with him and include him throughout the day, I'm going to be better in these other areas. And if I keep that cycle rolling and rolling and rolling, I become a better person. It just, you think like, yeah, but if I don't solve this fire on work, I'm not going to have time for the others, but when it's standing on its head, it just doesn't work.
I think most of our issues are employee issues. They're people issues. They're relationship issues. It's not like the tech doesn't work. It's not like the machine's broken. It's the people who are running it are broken. And for a long time, they called that soft skills. And people would say, I don't pay you for soft skill training. That's ridiculous. And okay, well, do you have robots in your shop? I mean, don't you have human beings? And the soft skills is the communication, the understanding, the dealing with human beings. And all the problems we have are human being problems. And if we could get better at just acknowledging the investment in the human being part of our lives gives us better return somewhere else, we'd be smarter. We'd have better results. When you look at margin, I can't measure emotions, but I can measure my calendar. I can't measure emotion, but I can measure my finances. I can even sort of measure my health. How much sleep I get, what do I eat, how much do I work out, what's my blood pressure, all that can be measured and tracked. So I can do something for all three of these categories, but I can't measure my emotion. You ever drive down the road and all of a sudden someone cuts you off and you just go ballistic?
Yeah.
You're honking, you're giving the finger, all this kind of stuff. Where'd that come from? Well, you thought your emotions were under control because you're used to running at such a high level of emotion. That's normal for you.
Yeah, you're off in the moment.
Yeah. But one thing, all of a sudden you break loose because you're not as cool as you think you are. You're just learning to live under stress. And so one employee comes with one issue and you just go crazy, right? So why don't we be really intentional with the three categories of time, finances, and health, and be really smart to build margin in those in hopes that we guard the emotional bucket. And so if I know I'm having a bad day and I got to call, my mom's in the hospital, my mom fell and broke her femur bone. She's 92. It was a really big deal. And I couldn't fly because I had a detached retina and it was healing. I couldn't get on an airplane. I felt so guilty. My mom's suffering. I can't go be there to be by her side. So all this guilt and all this emotion. And here I'm going to go make the good decisions today.
Yeah.
You know, we don't factor that equation in there. And then all the other things that go into that all day long with kids and marriage and all the health issues that come up. I also have a blocked artery that came up in the last quarter. This is emotions that add to your equation. If you're not guarding your margin, you're going to bust somewhere. These three can be controlled and measured to protect the fourth one, which is emotion.
Well, what's the how after you do that? Like I'm sure it's in the book. You solve margin, but now how do I protect my emotion?
There's a lot of steps he writes about. This is Swenson's book. He writes about simple things. You've heard of box breathing, that you calm your body down and you intentional. In our meetings, I have toys every meeting. The table's covered in toys. We have flowers. We're doing a lot more to build calm into the meeting. So we bring flowers to every meeting. I just got this sand art thing, We're just doing things intentionally to create things that are going to be calm. We also have ways that we talk about in our meeting. When we check in, we used to give a score, but now we're talking about all four categories of margin.
Yeah.
So we're doing things to add calm to your emotion, but one of the best ways is just talking about it. Having someone you can be honest with. Those of us who are Christ followers, we get to take that to the Lord. And we get to sit and bask in the truth of God's word that says everything's under his plan and under his authority. And even though it's hard, he's still in control. So the reality check where we take thoughts captive and we don't believe lies, we don't spiral out of control. We just go, okay, Lord, I know you got a plan for this. I'm going to rest in that. You are helping control your emotions by claiming the truth of God's word. So that works for us. Those who don't know Christ, I don't know how they deal with it the same way.
Yeah.
And sadly, a lot of my clients use booze. And that really doesn't fix anything because now you're eating up your health. So now I got to go to doctor appointments because my liver's not working. I'm fat and I can't breathe right. And then that also causes money woes because now I have to pay for all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's time woes because I go to doctor appointment. All these things are connected, but you think you'll fix it with a bottle of booze and it doesn't.
Yeah.
I'm not against having a drink. I'm just saying that if your solution is ending up getting liquored up every night, you're not helping yourself.
No.
That's right.
I would, to the emotional component part of that, just my own personal experience is when all those others are maxed out, the smallest thing is the biggest thing. I've had this conversation with a bunch of friends of mine where it's like, I can take, give me, I'll take a sledgehammer. I'll take the biggest thing you can hit me with. And I'll just be like, okay,
get it over with.
That is awful, but I can handle it.
Right.
But when I press send on my email and it, the little dial comes up and it goes spinning for a second, I just want to flip the table over. I cannot take it. And it's all derivative, I think. I'm obviously I have really pointed questions on margin and I'm trying to dig in and solve for, but I think it's all derivative of time. I have no time margin, which is spilling over into other places. That little
That's
tiny
right.
thing. I don't have time for that.
Right.
I don't have time for that call. I don't have time for that interruption. I have time. I have to go from here to here to here to here. And so the little things sort of trickle down into the emotional bucket where I'm like, oh,
right. Which then skews your ability to do the next task you have. What we don't measure is, what is the effect of your emotion going awry on the next thing you tried to do?
Right.
And it could have been a 5-minute action, just go do this, but I'm so mad and I'm so frustrated. I can't think clearly. And I made the wrong decision, which I got to clean up later on, and the ripple effect of all that. We have started applying margin in our lives in the last couple of years. And by slowing down and making more room, my life is richer and fuller. I have more availability for my clients and for fun. One of our core values is fun. And people don't have fun anymore. It used to be you went golfing in the middle of the week.
Yeah.
It's just, people don't do that. Barely even go to lunch unless it's a business lunch. Why don't you go hang out with your friends? Go ride the bike in the middle of the day, read a book, laugh. I mean, it's simple stuff, but we're not having fun. And I want to have fun in my life, which requires I create margin so I can enjoy my life and have more fun.
I love that. Looking back, just reflecting in this episode, I think sometimes I give the negative emotional reactions power by talking about it in a positive light and joking, like Chicago Kevin's coming out. And at my worst is every Saturday morning I go on a 10K, I run on the sidewalk, and more times than not, I almost or actually get hit by a car. I'm not kidding.
Wow.
Like they'll see you and they're like, I'm going to beat you through this thing. And I am in the window and I'm looking at them like get out of the car right now. And they're like, I gotta go. Like it's different when you're both in cars, right? And you have this metal protecting you. But when one psycho's outside looking down at you, like I can open this handle right now, it changes. And I'm not proud of that. I've stopped giving that power of that. Oh, it's Chicago, Kevin. That's a lazy excuse.
So nobody cares.
That's right.
So what would you do? What would you do in this case?
The last one I did, it happened again, and I waved and smiled at the person.
So you have the choice how you respond.
That's right.
You also have a choice not to jog.
Well,
you do.
Yeah.
Okay. You also have a choice to set your expectation real. Everyone is a psycho who doesn't pay attention on the road. You're an idiot if you run in public because they're going to kill you. And so these are the choices we make, right? So I can run at the gym. I can go off some country trail where I just get chased by a dog. There's a lot of other things you can do in life. But if you have unrealistic, the number one cause of fights in my life has been unrealistic or unexpressed expectations.
That's big. That's big.
If you have an unrealistic expectation, I'm going to go jogging and no one's going to try and kill me. It's unrealistic.
Yeah.
So part of you creating a world where you can have more satisfaction is by setting expectations of what's true and what's real.
Yeah.
And then people get mad at all. My employees are so stupid. Well, have you trained them? Did you communicate well? Did you give them time to learn it? Have you given the tools? We talk about delegation, tools, training, communication. Oh my gosh, I forgot. And accountability. How do you forget accountability? So if you're not communicating with them, giving the tools and training to do it, it's your fault.
Yeah.
And you want to hold your employees accountable, but you never gave them clear communication, what it really means to do it. You never train them and you don't give them the tools. Whose fault is that? You have unrealistic expectations of what you're going to get out of your employees when you've not done your job as a leader. And then everyone's mad at everyone.
Yeah. And then there's authenticity. Are you walking the talk on those sort of things? And man, a lot of people are not.
I can't overemphasize that conversation we just had about expectations, because I've been sort of delving out pieces of that advice over the last, almost 20 years of why would someone act like that? To which I will say, the only reason you're appalled at the way they're acting is because you assume that everyone acts rational.
Right.
If you flip that pyramid and you just assume like, no, we're all broken people and everybody has a little hang up somewhere and we all sort of borderline on or are irrational. And like, if you just invert your like expectation pyramid, all of a sudden you're like, oh, that guy's acting crazy.
Which is how people act.
Right. And all of a sudden you're not disappointed in them. Like you see like, oh, that's an opportunity for me to then do X or Y or fix or communicate or whatever. And I do it a lot with the kids too, where they just don't understand. Like, why would, with Stella in particular right now, is just, girls and friends and stuff, is like, why would someone do that? I'm like, well, because Ashley did it to me last night, actually. I'll tell my own personal story. Stella is wonderful. We got these little cakes in a jar from Laduni. If you haven't had them, they're amazing. And she ate like a little piece of it.
Is this episode sponsored by Laduni?
It should be, yeah. So they have a quattro leches cake, which will blow your mind. Anyway, so Stella took like a fifth or a third of the little cake and ate part of it because she wanted everyone else to share the cake. She thought, and then I grabbed it. What did I do? And just ate the whole thing. Like I ate everything that was left. And she was like, why are you doing that? I was like, because I wanted to eat the cake. And Ashley's like, well, but you're frustrated, Stella, because you presumed that Dad was thinking about other people like you were, when in reality, I was only thinking about myself and how I wanted to eat all the cake. Anyway, the point of that being, her expectations were messed up because she was thinking about everybody, how that they would think and act like she did.
Right.
That's a really long way to get back to the point of that is huge. And expectations are huge.
We're supposed to create tools. We talk about a waterline. Core values are part of that. Our core values help us with what we expect from you. My expectations are you behave like our core values. In chasing our vision and mission, this is how you're supposed to behave. So with those expectations, and we train against them, we communicate, we give them the tools, and we train against it. Then we can truly hold people accountable. So if you want expectations of your behavior, you've got to go through that process first. Yeah. Otherwise, it's all on you. It really is.
Here's a fun core value story that I'll tell on myself just a little bit. But as we're chewing on some stuff at the office right now, like, well, why did this happen? Like, what is this issue? And I had I had a light bulb moment the other day. And this morning I pointed at it. I'm pinned on my board and I pointed at it and I was like, this thing happened because of this core value. And concomitantly, because it was not defined well. Mm-hmm. And so because it wasn't defined well, people took it and used that core value to do some things that have caused a problem. It's not because they weren't well-intentioned or weren't living up to our core values or weren't executing like we expected. It's because we didn't communicate well and define well what that value meant and how to use it.
Okay.
And so there's been that we're going to level the playing field of how we do things and what we stand for. But it can't just be the 3 words.
And they're not in it by themselves. It's kind of like taking one scripture and saying, well, this is what this scripture says. Ask anything in Jesus' name, you get it.
Right.
Well,
that's not what that
also
means.
says if you abide in him and his word abides in you, then you can do that. So we look at our core values. Our core values have fun. So having fun, I'm not going to work. I'm going to watch a movie today.
No, but that's not yet. Right.
There's other ones that go with it, like pursue excellence and serve beyond expectations. So you got to do all 3. All these core values come together. Mm-hmm. So we as a team have to constantly talk through them and how they intertwine.
Yes.
Because if we're working together and we're working efficiently, it's more fun. Mm-hmm. But you don't ignore one to get the other.
Correct. Yeah, that's a good, like they all need it. Yes. I don't need to say it again. That's great too. Kev?
I'm trying to figure out how to word this in a positive light. When he walked into this office, he's like, oh, those are cool core values. What are they? And I'll just end the story there. Which means he's walking the talk with it. It's important to him, not just in his business, but in business in general, right, and in people's lives.
And I asked a person who was here, hey, do you know what the core values are? And that person said no. And that person sees them every day.
Zooms right by him.
And I'll tell you, when I have clients that I've worked with that have them all over the walls, and I'd ask them in meetings, what are our core values? And they can't repeat them. Mm-hmm. So I started I was doing a working session with a company, and I'd come every month and we'd work through doing stuff to work as a team. And in the first session, nobody could say what the core values are. And so I gave them all a list of their own core values. And then a month later, I had a test. And it took like 6 months before they could actually write them down, let alone say what they meant.
That's right.
And if we as a company put them on a wall and say like, hey, there they are, go live by them, that's nothing. You don't do that with your kids. You don't give them a Bible, say, here you go, make it happen. You talk to them and you live it out and you model it and you make decisions against it. That's what makes them become real.
Was it somebody said, it might have been Dave Burrows, that if you're not repeating it enough that they make fun of you for it, you're not talking about it enough, something like that.
Oh, yeah, it's a theme. We talked about it at length last week. We had some run-ins with it of people figuring out that they're not living those words, and those words don't really match. You need to change them and update them. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to have words on the wall, they better be your identity. They better be the DNA of your people.
Or get rid of them.
That's
right. Or change them, or change your people.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Because you have somebody that has an eye for it that looks and is like,
wait a minute.
Right.
Not at all.
Yeah. I'm going to, unless you have something else there, I'm going to give us a left-hand turn real quick. You are spending time with lots of executives, CEOs in those groups. And is there any, I see these themes, or here's things that they're typically wrestling with, or any sort of, anything that you draw through that's like, this would be helpful to know that everybody wrestles with X?
Right now, the constant theme I'm hearing from everybody is everyone is overwhelmed, overloaded, exhausted, frustrated, burned out. Those are the words I'm hearing from everybody. It has to do with certainly some of the effects of COVID over the last few years.
Yeah.
I can't get enough people. I can't get enough products. I can't get supplies. I can't get cash. I can't get business. We're all overloaded. And once we got through COVID, then we had to go through with a shortage of materials and then the ripple effect. And so everyone is just emotionally worn out. And I think that's why we're taking all this focus on our group meetings is how are you doing emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not bringing your A game to the party. And under the guise of excellence, people have chosen to throw away a focus on a certain aspect of their life in trading for something else. And I don't believe work-life balance ever exists. There was a cool book by Andy Stanley called Choosing to Cheat. And he talks about you cheat work or you cheat your family, but you're always cheating something. But even at that point, we got to the mindset of work-life integration, but that didn't work either. That's where it led me to margin. And under that mindset today, people are using the excuse of excellence as justifying why they don't have some part of their life under control. But in our definition of excellence, it's pursuing the life, it's doing the best you can as you pursue the life you really want. So you get to decide what excellence looks like in your life. And so I may not be the biggest, most successful peer group company in the world or in Texas even, but I'm going to have a good marriage too. And I'm going to have fun and I'm going to have clients that I love. And I'm going to do all the things, including run my business profitably and run it efficiently. But that is a part of the equation.
Yeah, that's your benchmark for success. Who cares what other people are measuring to?
Most people do. They spend all their time chasing someone else's numbers. Most people have no vision of life they want to live in the first place, so they just chase your version of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And since I don't have one, I'll just go with whatever's around me, and everyone seems to be chasing this, so I'll just join that too.
That's a good point.
And really, until you know what you really want, how do you fight for anything? So you should be able to figure out what does excellence look like in your own life based on pursuing the life you really want to the best of your ability. That is excellence. And everything has to be above the zero line. You can't have great business, great finances, horrible marriage, great skills, physically healthy, but no fun. You can't have anything below the zero line. So I'd rather see you lower the growth of your plans for your company this year by 2% and take one day off a week and go play with your kids. You could still be as productive. You can still make as much money. I can give you tons of examples of working with my clients over the years who instead of making the top line the number one goal, they made the bottom line or some other aspect of their business the goal, and they made just as much money, profitability, and everyone had more fun. And they were still a very successful business, and it was more enjoyable to be a part of that company. I've seen lots of stories like that.
Yeah.
People need to go back to that today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's really good advice. Yeah.
Books?
Yeah.
You crush that. Well, at the very end, we're going to promote this. And I was even thinking maybe we'll use this as, I'll take a picture at the end of this, but we'll use this as the post too. So people can get your one pager and see everything that's available.
Oh, thank you.
But how we typically end is books and one big thing. So like you've already mentioned margin, but have there been some books that have just like been transformational in your life?
Yeah. Probably margin being the top one.
Yeah.
Certainly it led me to be able to write Nobody Cares. I love a book called Experiencing God by Blackaby. It's old, but it's very, very good to understand God. I like the book Raving Fans.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a good one, yeah.
Man.
Margin by Swenson? Is that the one?
Richard Swenson.
Yeah, okay.
It's old, but it's really good. I already mentioned Choosing to Cheat. I would say Peak by Chip Conley. It's Getting Your Mojo from Maslow. Talks about the pyramid of Maslow and how people just need enough to survive. That's the bottom. And then they go to having more satisfaction in things. But the top, it's self-actualization.
Mm-hmm.
And we all need to move ourselves and our employees towards a place of self-actualization. Sounds very hippie term, but it really is a really thing. If you're moving towards the best version of yourself and your employees are moving to the best version, your company will move to the best version of itself. Mm-hmm. So I really like how he writes that book. Dare to Serve Leadership is written by Cheryl Batchelder. She ran Popeye's Chicken, and she only took the gig if they would let her run it with a servant leadership style.
Mm-hmm.
And that was upfront agreement. And in her book, she tells a story of turnaround Burger King. Sorry, Popeye's Chicken, which got bought by Burger King. And she's super smart. And in the back of it, it tells you how to write out your personal purpose in life, which is how I wrote mine out. So I like her book. And then Built to Sell by John Werlow is a great book for business owners, really thinking about how do I add real value to my business, not just make more money. And the last one I read this last year was Unoffendable by Brant Hansen, which really changed the way I look at how uptight Christians are, including me. And I was very uptight, and I'm getting less uptight. But he really just says, hey, Jesus was laid back. and we got to stop being easily offendable.
Mm-hmm.
And it really opened my eyes a lot. So there's 2 books out there, Unoffendable, but this one's by Brant Hansen.
Gotcha. That's a good list. Probably half of them I never heard of too. So I do love a good, despite the fact that I don't read a ton, I love a good new book. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Because I went and looked up margin as we were talking. That's what I was confirming. I was like, yeah, that one needs to hit Audible. Boom. Because that one sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's a long read. I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll come and present it to your team because it's a boring book. And I love the guy. I reached out to him and I got his slide deck of how he did his presentations. He's a super old guy and he's not healthy. And I said, I'd like to champion your book long after you're gone, and talk to his publisher, and they didn't want me to. And so for whatever reason, so I said, well, I got his slide deck.
See you later.
But it was horrible. It was like a picture of a dog with no words. I didn't know what he meant to say. So I created my own slide presentation out of it, but I take the book into a very manageable 4-hour session because reading it is a bit of a
slog.
Challenge.
Yeah, right.
That's so weird. Like,
yeah.
What if you made that phone call to me, I'm like, thank you. What a rocking chair moment.
Right? And
Please do.
I even
Expand
wanted to pay to republish it, to make it current and to shorten it down. And they weren't interested. That's okay.
Whatever.
I got
you got your nuggets from it that you can disseminate with your own spin on it, not that it's and help people through it. So it's fine. It is what it is. Yeah.
And it's a passion of mine. So I would love to talk about it and have more people understand that life is richer when you create margin.
Yeah. I'm here for that. Okay. So our kind of ending note is, what's the one big thing? I'll give you like a little talking point around it as you get ready to give it to us. But of all your meetings and conversations and forums and chats and struggles and life's journeys, kind of what's a one big thing from you, like a one big takeaway to impart to our listeners here as we end our episode?
Man, I guess the one big thing I would say is stop making excuses for living the life you're living and really get a grip on what you want your life to look like, and then do whatever it takes to pursue that. Bible talks about if a guy found a field with gold, he'd sell everything he had to go get it, or a pearl of great price. He would sell everything he had to go get it. And too often we just get in the rut race of just doing what we're doing because that's all we know. But if you really step back and say, at the end of my life, it's going to look like this and I'm going to be very happy. Go chase that.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever it takes. I sold my house and started over. And it sucked.
Yeah.
But so does being in debt. So does living a miserable life. So is having a crappy marriage. And so you have to make changes. Okay. You're going to make changes one way or another. And I think it's more fun to be in control of that and stop letting someone else decide what your life looks like and you own it. It's more rewarding. It's more fun and you're in charge.
Yeah. That is a nice little note to end on.
Awesome episode, man. There's so many nuggets in there and good.
This is the best one I've ever done.
This was awesome.
That's what they all say. Right?
Yeah.
You guys are amazing. Really. I just feel so special.
This is awesome.
Yeah. Well, thanks for hanging out with us.
How do people get a hold of you?
Oh, yeah. Good touch at the end.
I'm on LinkedIn, and you can go to refdallas.com. That's my business website. You can go to nobodycaresbook.com and learn about the book. I'm going to Scotland this summer for a month, and I'm going to take everything I know and try and share it with Scotland.
Nice.
I just put this on my heart, and it's not a vacation. It's a work month. And so I am looking for connection. That's not answering the question. That's a different thing.
Yeah,
I want to I want people who know someone in Scotland who have a business that wants someone to come in and help them change their world. And so God put this on our heart. We're just going to go do it. And so book sales is great. Love to meet more people that I can serve and care for and help them live the life they want. I'd love for people to reach out to me.
And we're going to be giving away signed copies of Nobody Cares. So we all know how y'all love that. So
cool.
He brought some. We're going to give them away, and reach out to him if you're interested.
Yeah. Robert, thanks for hanging out with us, man. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you guys. This was fun.